I can't blame owners who say, I've been doing this for 20 some years.
Yeah.
I am making, plug in a number. It's all relative. 500,000, a million, two and a half
Yep.
million. I like that. I don't want to work any harder. I don't
Yeah.
want to stick any more money into it. I don't want to hire more people, get more vehicles or equipment. I like
Hmm.
the money I'm making. And a buyer looks at it and says, how do you grow this thing? Oh, you can grow it easy. There's so much potential. And the buyer's thinking, hmm, they've tried everything possible to grow it and it hasn't worked.
A lot of my listeners are planning for a future exit at some point, and so I want to have more conversations around exiting. And I'm going to do that through this new year. In light of a future exit, probably the number one thing a founder CEO could do right now is increase the value of their company for a future buyer. So today I have the privilege of talking with John Martinka, co-founder of Nokomis Advisory Services, and we're going to look at the 7 key factors to increasing the value in your company. So welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Lee, and I'm glad to be here.
So like always, I ask my guests to give a little background to how did you end up here?
Well, I'd say I've always been a small business guy. I think in my whole life I worked, maybe other than a summer job in school, 6 months for a big corporate entity. I was always working for small businesses. I actually started a painting company in college with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And how I got into what I'm doing now, I was doing some sales. A friend I had met as back-to-back presidents of a local Rotary Club, got to know each other pretty well, said something along the lines of, I've always thought you'd be good in this business. And that's how I ended up in the world of helping people buy and sell companies, M&A, all of that. I really like the variety.
Mm-hmm.
It's a variety of people. It's a variety of daily challenges and things that you're working on. I am not the engineer type who
Mm-hmm.
could work on the same bridge project for 3 years in a row every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So M&A is the space that you're playing in, and you're working with companies every day, helping them understand the value of their companies, exiting their companies, buying companies. Is that right?
All of that, buying, selling, figuring out what to do to make it more valuable for when they want to sell. And
Yeah.
I would say we don't do really any project work on, going in and saying, "Hey, over the next 2 years, we're going to get in here, we're going to have someone in here every week
Yeah.
helping you do all these things." But we do coach people on it sometimes. A couple of my best ones have been, I haven't even charged for it, but they say, when I sell, you're going to sell it. And you've helped me increase the value over the
Mm-hmm.
last few years. Uh, I just have to get it to a certain point.
There you go. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Well, so let's get right to the conversation of increasing value. I think if I were to poll my audience at some point in the the day to day, you got your head down, you're working on growth at different stages. At some point, you're going to pick your head up and say, "What is this worth?" And what do we need to do to make it worth more if exiting is in our front windshield? So, 7 key factors to increasing value. Let's jump into those.
Let's jump in. Yeah. Look, there's a lot of value drivers. You can hear a lot of different advisors and valuation people. Now, if you combine them all, you probably get a list of over 20 things that could be considered value drivers.
Mm-hmm.
But in my world, which is the lower middle market, we don't work with the main street businesses, and we stay away from what the investment bankers are working on. So
Yeah.
it's good, solid owner operated family businesses, etc. And it all starts with what everyone wants first: the numbers.
Yep.
It's the financial statements, it's the system. So I like to say, and all these things we're going to go through could be in any order, but everyone asks for numbers first: solid financial systems, so you have accurate financial statements.
I like it.
Now, I noticed one of your most recent podcasts had about personal liquidity and business liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
And I will change that a little bit to, don't blend your personal and business checkbooks.
Right.
The owners who everything is about, can I run it through the business? Can I pay less tax? And then you get to the end and someone says, no, I'm not sure that's a personal expense. That's a business
Yeah.
expense. And the bank says, no, you want to add back 50% of what's on your tax return to make more profit. No, we're not buying into all of that.
Right.
So
Yeah, we
clean
I had
books.
another guest on since you mentioned it, Jason Schappert, who just started Moolah and exited his aviation company, and he talked a lot about that same thing where he got himself in a situation where he had a buyer and they weren't interested because really when it came down to it because they had the personal and business commingled and they couldn't figure it out where the real value was. So he went back to the drawing board and did what you said, ended up getting another buyer on the line and sold it for so much more.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. Our last three clients that have sold their businesses had such clean statements. One of them to the point that in our first meeting, I asked him about that, and he said, "I actually reimbursed the company for my two kids' cell phones on the company plan." I
Yeah.
mean, that might be extreme.
Yeah.
Another one I asked. I was sitting there with the owner and his controller, and she was part of the sales process. And I said, "Okay, any personal expenses in here?" And he goes, "Even if I wanted to." And he turns and says, "She wouldn't let me." And that's what you want when you're presenting a business to
Yes.
buyers. Is
Yes.
these things are clean. We're not,
Well,
we're not trying to make things up and put lipstick on the pig.
nope.
And it it's comes down to the people. A lot of things in business, one of my things in, people are your number one asset, really. And in the financial department, it's too often looked like the, Cinderella story, the weak little stepsister off in the corner. Yeah, we got to do the accounting. Okay. My niece will do it. My someone in the family will do it. And, I think of one client years ago and their, quote unquote, in-house accountant was really a bookkeeper. And the
Hmm.
bookkeeper was a data entry person.
Yeah.
And you had an owner, the owner's wife, and a general manager, none of them knowing anything about accounting, all giving different directions.
Yeah.
And it got, one of the things we did for that company, I worked with a CFO I brought in, because it was on that. And the owner had said, the statements say we're making a lot of money, but there's never any money in the bank. And, that's a classic case. You
Yes.
see, you can't track you can't track expenses in some things from year to year
Hmm.
because they changed they put in a new account number or name, and
Hmm.
you're wondering, where did that come from? It wasn't there the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And, and I'll finish on this subject by saying I was talking to someone last year and I said, how much faith do you have in these financial statements? And I get a blustery, 100%. And
Yeah.
I said, then why are there balance sheet items on the income statement?
It doesn't work.
Well, I never noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Confidence goes down real quickly when you have that conversation.
Yeah.
So the
So
moral of the story is get your books in order.
get them in order. Get the right people. There are so many fractional uh, accounting types, bookkeeping,
Yeah.
accountants, controllers, CFOs. CFOs look to the future. Your
Hmm.
controller, CPAs that tend to look to the past.
Hmm.
Bookkeepers are let's make sure everything in there is accurate. And if you don't have them on staff, get a fractional part-time person who knows what they're doing, because they'll
Yeah.
do it so much faster and much more
Yeah.
efficient than your niece will do or the receptionist will do.
Yep.
And then you don't run into problems. And I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and many years ago, I said, we need a financial person on the board. We need to really look at your systems. Oh, no, everything's fine. About 3 months later, it was our young bookkeeper had just embezzled $50,000.
Oh man. Red flags.
Yeah. Which ended up getting paid back by her dad
Oh,
instead of
nice.
going to jail.
There you go. Okay,
So
so
it's
financial
really
systems
important.
that create accurate statements.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
So
Num-
next, uh, I attended an industry event last year, and it was a small panel discussion. One of the people on the panel, the main person, is a partner who had recently sold their business for $70 million.
Mm-hmm.
70 million. He, he said as they went through the process, he and his partner realized how overly important they were to the day-to-day operations. So owner dependency.
Mm-hmm.
It is a tough one.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know what your other guests and you have seen, but delegating when you're the owner, a founder, is tough. I can tell my
Yeah.
daughter works with me,
Yep.
and at some point I just have to say, "Do this. Come to me if you need help."
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it's a tough one.
if she takes 2 days instead of one day, or uh, she's stumbling around, you're the safety net, not the doer.
Yeah,
And
I've seen even very successful, big, high cash flow companies with big margins, having a bottleneck with a CEO or founder, and it's just they have their hands in too many things, and they have not delegated. They haven't given over that ownership to other people and created departments and that kind of thing. I would say that's the number one thing that I see out in small companies.
yeah, a quick story. I really like the owner. I did 5 different kinds of projects, some acquisitions, a potential sale that got derailed by outside forces during COVID. But one of the things I did was he said, "I'm not making enough money." And I came in and did some analysis and et cetera, met with management team. Many of the 40 or 50 employees came back to him and said, to a person, they say, "You are the bottleneck. Everything has to go across your desk and have your input and approval.
Mhm.
You need to start delegating." We put in a delegation plan. Within 1 year, his profits quintupled.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then his complaint was, "My people are coming to me and whining they have too much to do because I'm delegating." I said, "Well, teach them how to delegate
Yeah,
like I
next
did
level,
you."
next level.
Yeah. So owner dependency is can be a big impediment to increasing value, or you'll get the value if the owner stays on, and or if there's some
Yeah,
contingency payments and earn out to
right.
make sure the owner does stay on.
Yep. Which may
So,
not always be a great deal.
right. It may not be a great deal, but it may be not what they want when they think, I want to sell and retire and
Hmm.
move away. And nope, you're gonna stay here for a couple years.
You created a job for yourself. We need
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And then it's, can you work for somebody else? So
Okay. So reducing owner dependency, that's a tough one.
yeah,
Tough pill for a lot of people to swallow.
it is. Because the ego gets in the way.
Yes,
If I'm not doing it, what value am I? Well, value is you're not doing it.
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Should we move on?
Let's move on. Yeah. I don't know if I'm looking at the same list you are, but the next one on my list is growth.
Growth. Grow the business. Keep growing the business.
That's what
Uh,
we're here for.
yeah. But and I can't blame owners who say, "I've been doing this for 20 some years.
Yeah.
I am making, plug in a number. It's all relative. 500,000, a million, two and a half
Yep.
million. I like that. I don't want to work any harder. I don't
Yeah.
want to stick any more money into it. I don't want to hire more people, get more vehicles or equipment. I like
Hmm.
the money I'm making." And a buyer looks at it and says, "How do you grow this thing?" "Oh, you can grow it easy. There's so much potential." And the buyer's thinking, they've tried everything possible to grow it and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So show you can grow it. I don't care if you grow it 5% a year. You don't
Yeah.
have to grow it 10, 15, 20. Show it can grow and show what you did to make it grow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Document it.
that's that's a great point because I think a lot of people get complacent when they find a certain measure of fluency or wealth and stability or comfort in their life, and they know what they're going to do every day. They're satisfied with it, and it's fine. Like, actually, that could be fine for a lot of people. But if you actually want to sell it to a certain buyer, that buyer is going to have a different perspective.
Yeah. We call it coasting.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, you coast downhill. You don't
Yes.
coast uphill.
No.
You got to pedal.
So if you said to grow it by X%, just some measure that shows that it's growing. Is that, would you need to show a year, 2 years, 3 years of that growth for a buyer to be change their mind?
Well, three would be great because buyers and banks usually ask for 3 years of financial
Yeah.
statements. And if you can say over the last, I decided I was going to sell and I wanted to prove I could grow this thing, and here's what we did.
Yeah.
But if you
Okay.
do it for 2 years, you do it for 1 year, it's better than not doing it at all.
Yeah.
And let's face it, we talk about all this, getting it ready for sale. And we're going to sell in 3 years, 5 years. We're going to do all these things.
Hmm.
Pretend that you're going to always be selling it because you never know. We
Yeah.
had a client last year, got approached by a private equity backed firm in his industry. And then he hired us to put the deal together. He wasn't marketing the company. He wasn't thinking of it, but it was ready.
Hmm.
The people were in place. It was growing. His financials were, in great shape. Great
Hmm.
in-house accountant person. Good tenure and retention of his employees.
Yep.
All of that. So if you say, I'll wait till 3 years before I want to sell, and who knows what can happen.
That's right.
Or I just made a phone call yesterday to a guy I've known for quite a few years. He had asked me to contact him in January. He's the CEO of a company. He was the COO until a number of years ago. His CEO, who was in the family, died of a heart attack
Mm.
unexpectedly. You don't know when that stuff's going to happen.
That's right.
And what if he and his other family member weren't there, and if someone's, we got to sell it, but the CEO's gone.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yep. That's a tough position to be
Yeah,
in.
you got to be ready.
I like that. Hey, that resonates with what we're doing here. We're always looking for more and better ways to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to. So,
Okay, so moving on to number 4. What's your fourth one?
it's be able to hire and retain good and great people.
Yes.
People are the business.
Yes.
Uh, uh, you're buying the people. You're selling the people, the package.
Hmm.
So the best way to explain that in big picture is a number of years ago, it's a seller did not want the buyer to talk to a management team prior to closing. Sitting down together, buyer looks the seller in the eye and says, you may think I'm buying your business. I'm really buying your people.
Hmm.
He got to talk to the management team.
It's true.
The deal closed. This was a service business, but it could be a manufacturing business, a distribution business, a retail business. The buyer wants to make sure those people are going to stay. They
Hmm.
usually want to. Uh, they the people work for a small business for a reason. They could work for a big corporation and be a number.
That's right.
But they may not get paid as much or have the fancy retirement plan, but they have a culture and they have a little more freedom.
And I would underscore that from my perspective as a marketer, and have done some marketing strategy consulting with a lot of companies here, same sort of tranche of companies. When I go in and look at their brand, what I'm seeing is a lot of their brand is their people and their service that's being shown on the outside. It's the visibility of that, and so I'm coaching them on seeing that and bringing that to the forefront. So, from a buyer's eyes standpoint, if they can see that connection very clearly from customer reviews, net promoter scores, and all the things that are happening on your customer success side, they're seeing that flow through to the people, and you've got great people, then you've got a double whammy there.
You do, and I'll tell you, 3 of the deals we worked on last year, at least 3 of them, uh, had a retention bonus for key people of the company. One owner, he said, "I'm putting 50. You guys have helped me build this business. I'm financially secure with this. 15% of the proceeds are going to you. over at the end of 1, 2, and 3 years. So they would stay.
Hmm.
Another one, uh, the top handful of people got retention bonuses. I think it was done over after 1 year.
Hmm.
And the third one, it was the COO who really ran the business because the owner was at that point he wasn't too active.
Yeah,
He got a nice chunk of the sales price.
I like that structure. That's good.
But that keeps people. If you're
Yeah,
doing that along the way,
yeah,
instead of just saying, "Oh, you got paid X dollars a year," uh, that's that you're getting paid X, but here you did a great job. Here's a bonus,
hmm,
and here and I'm on the board of a company. One of the big things is the bonus plan and making sure people understand the plan so they know what they and the company have to hit to get that.
yep, yep. I like it, and that's a huge deal. As I'm looking at the list here, I'm looking at number 5. This I'm actually getting excited about this one because I think this one really is where it separates companies that are just naturally good to companies that are strategically great for a buyer. So
Hmm.
tell us about number 5.
Dependencies. And we talked about an owner dependency.
Hmm.
Uh, Usually it starts out with people asking about the customer concentration.
Yeah.
They really
So
should be asking about customer diversity.
yeah, right.
But if you have one customer that's, 43% or two customers 67%, you have a lot higher risk,
Yeah,
and to a buyer especially, than if you have 70 customers that are your top 70%.
that's right.
And you hear what they've done business with us for 20 years, and I know the CEO, I know the owner. That's right.
Yeah,
You know them.
that's right.
The buyer doesn't know them.
Yeah.
And and it's scary. Prospective client the other day, and she knows it. She says our top customer has grown to be 40%. We're doing more business with others, but they've grown so much faster.
Hmm.
And her job right now, we'll call it, is to not reduce what they're doing, but get more other business so it's a smaller percentage.
Yeah, to get more new businesses and increase what
Yeah,
other current customers are doing.
you're right.
And that's a form of growth right there that's going to map to the buyer to see, oh wow, I can actually expand on current customers immediately.
Yeah. And then we have suppliers.
Hmm.
I have I know a banker. She's a good friend. A number of years ago, she told me she was working on a loan. I don't know if it was an acquisition loan or what kind of loan,
Yeah.
but the company had one supplier. One. The bank did due diligence on the supplier,
Mm.
make sure they were stable. Now that can't control what the supplier does, because last year, Jessica, my daughter, and I sat down with an owner, and he told the story about how few years prior, his main top dominant supplier came to him and said, "We need you to buy this much product over the next year at this price. If you won't do that, you're not getting any."
Hmm.
And that was his worst year, just about ever,
Hmm.
because of those. He had to make all those purchases, and
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was a high price.
It can
And
lock you up.
you just don't immediately flip the switch and say, "Oh, someone else can provide it." You don't
Hmm.
know what their capacity is, their pricing.
Right. Yeah. I like this. So lowering your dependency on other parties, customer base. We talked about suppliers. This one is interesting to me. Landlords not renting and moving to
Landlord can
ownership.
be a key to a deal or deal not happening.
Yeah.
So a smart buyer will generally want a lease, including any options, to cover the term of any debt they have.
Hmm.
Banks will, with few exceptions, want the same thing. I had one a number of years ago as a plumbing company, and the landlord only wanted it was a 10-year loan. The bank wanted a lease to cover that. The landlord wouldn't give it. The bank finally gave in and said, "Okay, you can take a 5-year lease, because we realize you are in a small industrial park. You got a couple bays and warehouse space. That's all you have. You can move a lot of different places without a big cost.
Yeah.
But what if you got a manufacturing business and you got CNC machines all over the place,
Yep.
and you have to move them and find the space and the power that can
Mm-hmm.
run those machines,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to recalibrate them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And will your employees like where the new facility is?
That's right. Lots of variables.
Yeah.
So it's
So
not just owning and renting, it's all the other nuances of the space that you occupy.
yeah, and we read about all the office space glut in places, and yet warehouse and industrial space does not have that glut. And most of these small businesses are not in a high rise.
Mm-hmm.
And even, was it yesterday, the Wall Street Journal had something about how companies are, there's a lot of office space available. The companies, as they bring people back, want Class A space. They want amenities. They want a
Mm-hmm.
gym in the building. They want, this, that, everything.
Yeah. And it's,
Yeah. And then we talked about people before, but, key employees can be a dependency.
yeah.
What if you have a person that's the only one who can bid certain kinds of jobs?
Hmm.
The lady I just mentioned before, she said one of the things they did over the last few years was uh, make sure two people in the company do every job.
Ah, nice.
So if one of them leaves or is out, still gets done.
Yeah, and that's a good one for just day to day too. I mean, if you have one person that's locked in on doing this one thing, then you're kind of held prisoner to them on a day to day. Not even if you're trying to get sold.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a salesperson who brings in
That's
50% of your
right.
revenue.
That's right.
And it takes time. A small businesses have to be growing, because then they can fill in these things we're talking about. If you
Mm-hmm.
keep it at 10 or 20 or whatever people, 50, and you could grow it to, double that, triple that,
Mm-hmm.
and have those redundancies. That's all these things we're talking about, they tie together.
Yeah.
These are not separate issues. There's,
No.
packages.
No.
It's like
That's
making
right.
bread. All the things come together in the dough.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we'll see that here play out again in number 6.
Yeah, I came up with this one, the three I's, and it's not people. It's IP, IT, and incentives.
Hmm.
Uh, if you have IP, protect it.
Mm-hmm.
Trademarks, patents do have value. Trademarks help. What is your IP? And not every business has it, but if you have it, protect it.
Right.
But then we get to IT, and if that's not a mess that's exploding faster than ever with cybersecurity and
Cybersecurity. Yeah.
hacking and ransomware.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think about a client that they dealt in sensitive information. They did everything right. Their MSP, managed service provider, got hacked,
Hmm.
and all their customers' login was available. They logged into my client, got a ransomware attack.
Ah.
It cost him like $500,000 because
Hmm.
sensitive information, he got fined, even though it
Yeah.
wasn't his fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And it could have cost him $5 million. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the price tag? It could be anything.
Yeah. I talking to a owner of a MSP recently, and he was looking at another one to buy, and he said, well, this MSP got hacked. I mean, he said, that doesn't speak highly for the work they do.
Mm-hmm. That's
They
right.
got ransomware.
Yep.
And then the other eye is incentives. And we talked about it on the sale, but it's taking care of your people along the way. So I'll give you an example.
Mm.
A friend of mine and George bought a company a number of years, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Time flies, right? And uh, the owner is he's one of these guys who, he really protected his dollars. And as we looked at the company, I looked at it because I was helping George buy it. And we looked at the company, and he said, these people don't get paid very much. And he came in, George came in with his partner. First thing he did is change the comp plan, put in a bonus plan. They did a lot of inside sales. His people were more productive. They were excited to work. He grew the company 75% first year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
That's pretty amazing. Oh, I think you're on mute.
yeah,
There you go.
sorry. Yeah, I hit it by mistake.
That's okay.
See the big picture.
Number
You know, I
7.
talked about this owner who was so into every dollar for himself. It's a, you know, the guy who runs a CFO company here in town and had a client, and he referred him to me, and he said, "Here's this guy. He will trip over dollars to save a dime." So
I have
see the
met
big
people like
picture.
that.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. You may have to spend a little money, but it's going to be worth it in the future.
Yep.
You may have to pay your people a little more, but they'll be more productive.
Yes.
And then as you see that, I mean, you have my list. And this last line came to me from a guy who was a president of one of the divisions at Expedia. And he said, growth hides a lot of operational warts. And then when you grow, you fix the warts.
Yeah.
You don't worry about them when you're growing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we're like a tech business. It's revenue, revenue, revenue. You still got to make money.
Yeah.
But when you're growing, you have time to handle those things instead of worrying about every dollar again.
Yeah. I think that's a great perspective. That's a good big picture perspective, is just to grow and let these problems, if they're not out of control, let them exist, and you can come back and fix them in a more systematic way. That sometimes, I kind of like, I don't know why this pops in my head, but you can rent a house for 5 or 6 years and have mortgage rates be up. And then you can buy a house and have, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7%. And then the rates drop, and the amount of money you save in years on your amortization schedule can make up for all the years that you were renting. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like that time of renting seemed like you were losing out, but just a simple rate drop can help you make up for the time that, your total mortgage is going to be. And I think that's very similar. It's just grow and don't worry about every little detail until those details become warts, and those warts need to be taken care of.
It's great. Great way to put it.
Yep. I love it. This is awesome. Thanks for sharing this list with us. I mean, this was seven key factors, but it really was about 15 when you get down to it. I mean, it's a lot baked in there.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. And I guess one of my final pieces of advice for owners who are growing their business and doing it is, it's like it's the old, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? You don't
Right.
you can't do everything at once.
Right.
And it takes time. And you're gonna stumble, and you're gonna do a couple of things and say, I wish I would have done it different, but now I
Yeah.
know. And the other thing, when they're looking to sell, your business isn't that special. It could be a great business, but there are other great businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to, we talk about increasing value, there are valuation methodologies and ranges based by size, industry, these factors. The company with one customer at 70%, yes, they're going to get a lower price, all things being equal.
Right.
And when we talk about growth, it comes back in two ways. When you are a larger company, obviously you should have more profit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a larger company, you're going to get a higher multiple of that profit.
Right.
Because the $5 million business has more risk than the $15 million business, which has more risk than the $25 million business, and up, because as you get larger, you can have these teams, and you can have all the other infrastructure things, and you can have the owner not doing as much, or should at least can have the opportunity to not do much. They should jump on.
Right. Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks again for sharing this list with us and all your wisdom. We want to send people your way. Where should we send them?
Send them to, two things. Our website is Nokomis Advisory, Nokomis advisory.com. And we have a new book out, Exit with Style, Grace, and More Money. And they can get it on Amazon.
I like that. Exit with Style, Grace, and More Money. That's a great title.
Yeah.
That's what everybody wants, right?
Right.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on and sharing all your wisdom.
It was a pleasure being here, Lee.